Welcome to another edition of the Daily Night. I am Brian Smith, and I am welcoming in Andrew Johnson, my cohort here with Inside the Nights on Fan Nation, powered by Sports Illustrated. Andrew, good to have you on the show, brother. How's it going?
Every time, buddy. I love being on the show, man.
Yeah, well, it's fun to talk a little football now that it's just NFL playoff time. Regardless of how crappy the games have been in the NFL playoffs, but besides the Cowboys just laying an egg, oh, that's bad. That's
I was saying,
bad.
Kyler Murray too, man. That was tough.
Yeah,
Size, this
yeah,
size is going to be tough moving forward.
yeah, it is. Today's episode is going to be about two primary things. Well, one featured, and then a little bit of transfer stuff because, as I'll explain in a minute, it's hard to give information about when, and that's what people want to know. Never going to know that. So we're going to talk about DBs, and we're going to talk about the impending transfer. There's probably several possibilities, but because kids can't just in the middle of a semester jump in, it gets a little tough. So first off, you and I remember when I met you this past season, we're in the booth, we're looking down at the secondary, and it's like the first time the Knights take the field defensively. And the first thing I said to myself is, I wonder if the other team will score on this play. Because looking at the stats from the year before, and I'm a stat junkie,
Yeah.
it was not good.
Nah.
They led the nation in a stat that you would prefer not to even be in the conversation. In 2020, UCF gave up the most plays of 10 yards or more. That is the definition of horrific. And I look at the depth chart and I say, this can go one of two ways. They've got young guys that are athletic and long. UCF probably had the biggest secondary in the country height-wise. But until otherwise proven, they stink. Now, a couple of the freshmen got thrown into the mix for injuries, etc. It was just a horrific situation in terms of why they ended up being horrific. But still, they didn't make plays, and you got to prove yourself. Remember that they had that midpoint where I don't know, it was Memphis. I can't remember which game it was. All of a sudden, the light came on, like Davonte Brown.
Justin Hodges too, man.
I have no idea what it was. David Gibbs is noted to be a very good DB coach, and he doesn't get much conversation. Everybody talks about T. Will, and he's a good coach, but he coaches linebackers, and the back end is David. David coaches the corners, safety, etc. They have done a great job because first couple games,
Talk about the culture there. They're building. I feel like they're building a culture.
Correct.
Right.
And again, this is not unbeknownst to other college football scouts, analysts, writers, coaches. Sometimes a kid just needs to see something on film and see it in front of him enough times, and then he's like, I got it. What was interesting is that multiple guys went, I got it, in one game. I don't know if I've ever seen a game called, I think it was the Memphis game. I can't remember.
I think
they were just downhill, anything they could charge on, whether they were going to get to the ball or not. UCF, hey, I'm not going to get it. They would run through the guy. They'd try to strip it. It was just more of a belief. You're not going to make that attempt, let alone the play, unless you believe it up here. You have to think that you're going to make a play. Because if you charge on a guy and you miss, that's what happened in 2020.
Yeah.
And
another big thing, I think that you can give some credit to the defensive line as well, because they finally start getting some pressure and getting some sacks on the quarterback, and it took off some pressure on that secondary. So,
yeah, I was talking to a buddy of mine the other day. If you've got a choice between a great D line or a great secondary, he said take the D line every time, because no matter how good the secondary is, eventually your guy's going to get open. It doesn't matter if you got all Deion Sanders. Somebody's going to get open eventually. So, well, that's a completely unrealistic scenario. It's just the point. You have to be able to get pressure on the quarterback and make him throw it away, get sacked, make his eyes look down so he misses an open guy. It starts with there. So that's a great point by Mr. Johnson. But again, the premise of this entire podcast is we went from 0 to 60 from 1 week to the next. It was just bizarre. And that's great. It's great. And here's the best part of it. I'll share my screen in a second. But forget the names, forget the positions. For whatever reason, and I don't know what happened in 20, they must have had a lot of seniors or whatever. Last year's team, they were all underclassmen, pretty much. freshmen, sophomores. Well, Brandon played corner. He's big enough to play safety. But they had all these guys that can come back this next year and most the year after. So we're looking at a very unique scenario where UCF's defense, like in 20, think, oh God, here we go again. Didn't start great in 21. At the end of 21, you're like, okay, these guys played pretty good. They had some moments. There was a miss in the Florida game. Quarterback, oh God, Emory guy was first player out to the ballpark and missed him right down the middle of the field. Would have been a touchdown. They got away with it.
He missed a lot of throws.
Emory Jones was terrible in that game. He was terrible.
He helped the secondary out a lot.
Yeah, there was a couple of busts, and they should have been scores or big, and he missed them. That being stated, they still held their own for the majority of the rest of the game. Now you go through another spring, off season, summer, all that. I expect that technically they should at least take the next step. So with that, I'm just going to show just a few of the kids. These are, yeah, this is something important. Sometimes seeing it is more important than anything else. So I don't really know why DBs do this, but like if you look at this is just the interception chart. They didn't have anybody with over 2 picks. And there were a handful of other ones that I'm being kind here that should have went the other direction. That's the next step, because once you start taking plays and really just manipulating the game on that one play, then the offensive coordinator is scheming differently, pulling back his playbook, and then you can really hone in on them with their pass rush and run defense. They don't trust their quarterback to go against your DBs. It's pretty much Katie bar the door. But UCF, again, they're going to have to prove that. 13 interceptions on the year is just, it's okay. It's not great. But again, you add another year of experience.
Right.
That's what I'm curious about. Which guys did you personally like the best in the secondary?
I think I like Divaad Wilson, man. I think he's a dog.
Divaad had his moments. I'm not as high on him as you, but I had a super high opinion of him athletically and stuff. He just didn't reach what I thought he would. Mm-hmm. But he still got more eligibility. I mean, technically, as a matter of fact, Divaad, because for those of you that don't know, the 2020 season, everybody gets that year back that play per NCAA rules because of the COVID year. That being stated, Divaad has 2 more. Good Lord. So the 2019 season and the 21, he's got 2 more years. Mm. So actually even 3, but if he's here 3 more, there's a problem.
No, I shouldn't be here that long.
No, I don't think so. Maybe 2, whatever it is. I'll let the NCAA figure it out.
He has all the tangibles, man. If he can learn the playbook more and make better reads coming down on running backs or taking away a tight end, he can be a good guy. I like Justin Hodges as well. So
yeah, I'm curious to see what they come up with. The bottom line is this: if you have a player like him, Divaad is long. I mean, he fits what you're looking for in regards to the free safety position, but they need to develop somebody behind him. I'm a little bit concerned in this perspective. What if, like, he was durable this past year? What if Divaad had been injured? Now, they've got other guys, they move around. Like Lester was kind of their Swiss Army knife. Yeah. And that guy's just a good football player.
Quadric Bullard.
That's the other one. Yeah. Bullard looks like he has, never seen a weight room. The kid's tried. His metabolism's through the roof.
We seen him in person, man. We didn't know who he was at first.
You have no idea. Like when he walked into the media room for the Florida UCF press conference a couple of days before, I said that. I'm like, oh no, wait, what? I mean, he was that thin, but he's a tackler
on the field.
It doesn't matter. Yeah, because like he has no fear.
Yeah.
So from that perspective, I really respected him.
Yeah.
It's just that at the end of the day, he's got to gain some weight because realistically, and I'll pull up tackles here. Guys that are that thin that play safety a lot, they're generally not going to go 2 years without some kind of injury. He admitted during our press conference with him, hey, that's my number one goal. I got to lift heavier, more. I got to eat more. I have to gain weight. He's maybe $170, maybe.
Maybe.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Let's see him, man.
Yeah. Let's see what Bullard. Yeah. Bullard had 83 tackles.
Look at that.
I mean, that is like crazy, isn't it? He had 4 tackles for loss, and he's listed at $170. That's probably kind. You know, I'm just giving him that. I bet he's closer to $160. Being dead serious. He's just not a big guy, but he's good being around the football. He always knew where the ball was going, and there were a lot of plays. Quadric would make a tackle, and if he didn't, it deuces.
Man.
So I'm curious to see how they use him next year. Does UCF go to more of what, like Alabama? I always reference their second, because Saban coaches their secondary to this day. Yeah. Their star position is their overhang linebacker, but it's really just a safety. He's given up on that. He just straight up goes with a safety. It's a true nickel at all times, if not a dime defense. Bullard, to me, would be the guy he would play over the slot because he's just a crazy guy that throws his hat in the ring, doesn't care. I guarantee you, Saban, if he played at Alabama, they would play him. They would find a role for him because he would respect his style of play. And this just in, Saban looks at everybody like a number. You know what I mean? It is either you can play for me or you cannot. Yeah. And I fully believe that Nick would play Bullard if he was at Alabama. That's how much respect I have for him. And again, if he can gain, let's say 25, gets up to 185, whatever that number,
75.
That would change his outlook, not only nights, but potentially maybe he could be a special teams guy and a situational guy at the NFL level. I don't know if he can cover well enough to be an NFL guy every down. That's really hard. But he can make an NFL roster. He just has to get bigger.
Really, how big are you on Davonte Brown?
He's my number one guy in the secondary.
He's talented. He's lengthy. That's a good cornerback. I can be a potential NFL back.
I'm working on my top 50 list or somewhere in that range for next year. And it's a little more difficult for UCF than it is for other schools because they take so many transfers. Davonte will be somewhere in my top 10 and probably top 5, ranking 50 to number 1 most important players for the class for the 2022 season. When they had Corey Thornton out, they had Brandon come over and play the other corner part of the time. They moved guys around. Dylan Lester, they did a little of everything. But that's when Davonte played his best, which is weird, by the way. But maybe he just accepted that challenge. And if you look at some of the other corners, let's just kind of go down the list. Hodges is your guy. And he had 1 pick.
175.
That's kind as well.
That's super kind for him.
He's not a big guy.
$160.
But here's my point I was talking about earlier. 1 pick. That's not enough.
That's not enough at all.
He had 2 or 3 other chances. Those are the plays that get you over the top as a defense. Next year, barring quarterback just being a sham, UCF's going to be really good offensively because the line got a couple key transfers. They got Sam Jackson coming back, and they got Isaiah coming back. They got Hudson. They just got Keymore Gamble. UCF on offense, there's no excuses. There's none. But you still have to stop people. And that's why we're talking about this, and it's so important. Other teams are going to come into the game knowing if we don't throw and score, we're not winning. Because UCF's going to score 28 or more, probably 85% of their games. This secondary is going to get challenged.
All right, let me ask you, because we haven't talked about this yet. Kobe Perry, where does the transfer from Austin Peay fit in on this defensive secondary?
Austin Peay, yeah, you know what? I watched some of his film. He's a little bit like Quadric in that he plays downhill. He's a little bigger. Yeah. Strong safety type. Yes, I think that he, again, if they use a lot more nickel, true nickel, he'll be the guy that plays over the slot. And against teams that go like twins, 2 receivers to each side, or they put a tight end in front and 2 guys right behind, you can tell it's screens coming. He'll be that guy. But in a traditional set, not that hardly anybody runs an I formation anymore, he's a strong safety. He's not a coverage guy that's going to be roaming the back end like Divaad. Now the question is, who in the hell do you put at safety when you just go to a normal? But who starts? Does Dylan Lester start? I don't see how you could take Bullard off the field, but maybe Bullard is your strong safety and Perry is your overhang linebacker guy. There's a lot of different questions that I don't know the answer to, but I do know this much. with UCF's depth in the secondary, that's something that UCF fans are probably not used to hearing. They have some opportunities. Do they really find the answer in one game and stick with it? Because I mean, you can go all the way down the roster. They got a lot of guys, but this is the one that I'm most curious about, and that's Brandon Adams.
Okay.
Yeah, because he, like, for people that don't know, he's an Atlanta kid that signed before Gus got here last year. Played quarterback, receiver, played everything but what he played for UCF last year, pretty much. They throw him out at corner, 6'2", 6'3", and he's effective as a true. He's just a natural freaking athlete. Where are you going to put him? How are you not going to play him? So they have good problems to work out. And when guys get banged up, Brandon answered the bell this past year.
Mm-hmm.
He should be. I mean, he's going to get better. He's going to get bigger, stronger. He's obviously got a better knowledge base. There we go. So now I'm just curious who plays where. And they might move it around because every team's offense is slightly different. So a guy like Quadric Bullard that you and I both like, maybe he plays strong safety in one game, but for another team that runs a lot of screens, they want him closer to the line of scrimmage, and they just put him at that linebacker spot. I don't know, but those are things you can do with experience and talent. Yeah. And this defensive secondary has both. Hard to say how long that'll work out because, I mean, eventually these guys are going to go. You got to replace them, but they also have talent coming in. I want to talk about that in a second too. Yes, so where would you play a guy like Perry? What would you do with it?
Like you said, I would overhang him on the middle so he can take away the running back and the tight end and let Divaad cover the back end. That's what I would play it like that.
I think that's pretty much. Now, to be specific, when I say overhang, I'm talking about the slot as much as the tight end.
He can take away.
If there's no tight end, and sometimes the tight end is detached.
He can move up like an extra linebacker type.
That is correct.
Yeah.
So it's just that's what Alabama does on every play in the SEC where there were ridiculous running backs. Yeah. That shows you how hard it is to find guys that can play that combo spot. So the other thing I want to talk about, you have the twins from Seminole coming in and Nakai Martinez. The Henderson twins are really I've seen them play numerous times. They're not, I don't give a crap what they ranked them. They're both physically NFL players. Physically. Yeah, okay. They just got to gain weight. They're around 163. They need to gain weight.
And you've seen the twins and Nakai Martinez. You've seen them all play in person.
Numerous times.
Gotcha.
Yeah. Those are my guys. I'll be surprised if they don't find a way to get them on the field.
Yeah, that's what I want to talk about.
But they're more.
How are they going to? These three guys could literally play day one.
If I had to pick anyone out of the three, I would pick Nakai to play the earliest because he's the most savvy in zone. He baits quarterbacks really well, but at the same time, athletically, the twins. If you want entertainment, look up Jakari Henderson and Damari Henderson and type in Huddle. Click on one of their basketball videos.
On his head.
Oh, I forget which one I clicked on first, but it doesn't matter. I know which one's which based on their numbers, but even though I know them well, I can't tell them apart right in front of me. I always joke with them about it. They're literally identical.
Are they the next great UCF twins?
I mean, I hope.
Yeah.
But physically they can. But the first clip, because they're so athletic, and Seminole's one of those schools that always has dudes. They've got guys who want pro baseball, pro football, everything. They're in full court press. One of the twins steals it. He's got a guy next to him. He could just try to lay it up. He throws it high off the backboard, knowing his brother's coming behind him, and he punches it something fierce. And, I mean, the other team was just, I mean, it was just the moral. It was like they just folded. You know, like that's not something you recommend, but you know where your twin, you know what I mean?
That's not brotherly chemistry, man.
Yeah, like
that's got to be great.
That's not a high percentage play, but it was spectacular. And there's just plays like that. Yeah, and it's just there was a game earlier this season in football. One of them had a fumble return for a touchdown, and the other one had an interception for a touchdown. They find a way to be around the ball, whatever sport they're playing. And they're just as good at hoops as they are at football. But guys that are 6'1", and they'll probably be 175, 180 when they enroll. They told me they knew they had to gain weight. If you have guys like that added to your roster, again, worst case scenario, they're pushing the guys in front of them. And when somebody gets hurt, they play more.
There you go.
And they got linked. I mean, the Kai's around 6 foot, 5'11", something like that. And the Twins are over 6 foot. You add athletes like that are good enough to play in the SEC at all three of them.
Exactly.
You know, Damari's going to play free safety. Jakari's going to play corner. That's the way they've always done it. And the Kai will play corner. You have already depth, but now you add those guys as well. And UCF is, for the first time in probably its history, literally, I mean, school hadn't played football forever, has an enormous amount of depth at the most pain in the butt position on the field to recruit, and that's corner. So, and safety with Damari is getting deeper. He told me eventually he'd learn some corner, but he wants to get safety down first, which is smart. This is a great problem to have.
Yeah.
You know, Gibbs and T. Will, they're not going to have it easy. You know, you got a guy like Brandon. Are they going to leave him at corner? Are they going to move him to free? Are they going to do both? Yeah. You know, I have no idea.
Like you said, though, they got good problems because they got depth and experience. So there's a good problem to have. And we'll talk about it. We'll talk about it in another show.
What I just did. Get this up. I have no idea what that is.
Uh-oh.
There it is. Oh, that's a stupid ESPN thing. Davonte is still the key. It's still the key.
Yeah, he's a guy.
Because if you have a guy that's dominant at corner, and he played the best out of all of them.
Take away that side.
Yeah, if not take away, at least they want to fear him.
There you go.
Then you roll coverage to other guys. I don't have any idea which guy is going to be the other corner at this point. As they say, it's an open competition. Corey, Brandon, Nakai, Jakari, Lester, you know, whatever it is they do, that's their business. And I'm not afraid to say that it's not good to guess right now. Why would I do that? Watch the spring game and then see who trots onto the field for the first game next year. I'm not a fan of just guessing to be guessing. Corey started again when he came back from injury. If people remember, Corey Thornton was injured in the Louisville game, but now he gets a chance to come back. He's going to be a junior, just like Davonte. Unfortunately, we just don't get to see. We didn't quite get to see enough of Brandon. That's why I left his name up there on the screen. Brandon has the length, the speed, the size to do whatever it is you need to make it happen.
Yeah.
Who moves where, though? I still think somebody moves. So last point I'll make on DB here. Out of all these guys, and there's a bunch of DBs at the top 20, and this is all their tackles. Out of all their DBs, they all have upside. I don't think anybody has topped out. That's the most important thing because they improved, but now you have to hit that next mark.
Yeah.
What is it you're going to do to hit that next mark?
And I think you made a key point. They're going to have to start creating takeaways.
Fumbles and interceptions.
That'll be the biggest upgrade for them next season.
The mental weight takes longer to go on because playbooks in football aren't about what you do. It's about knowing what to expect from the opposition. Okay, they're in this formation. When there's an H-back on the right, they like to go max protect and throw deep. And there's just little things. Either you see it or you don't because you watch film.
Right.
And you've learned from your coach and your reps and reps and reps. It's experience. There's no way around that. Out of any position on the field other than quarterback, the only spot that I really hate the words freshman, corner scares me against a really good quarterback because they'll play games with them and get big plays. As a general rule. Yeah. Oh, yeah. I mean, I would. Yeah. Why in the hell would you not?
An 18-year-old kid. Attack him.
Yeah. So keep that in mind. And people like to talk about the opportunity to create negative plays and all that. And this secondary will help the front seven again. But that's where we come into the transition here. There is one player that's been rumored to be going to UCF for a while. And I've got a picture of it. I'll see if I can find it here. But there's one guy, and he's a massive kid. He just entered the portal. It's a kid that UCF, I think, will get. But I don't know how this is going to work. The transfer portal, as they say, is something that's, it's very difficult to project. Because, quite frankly, there's nothing about it that's consistent. Every school has a different time for when they're going to be doing something in regards to, hey, this guy's he's a great player and this and that, but well, when's he going to enroll? I don't give a crap about the other thing. He's got to be able to enroll. Yeah. UCF started school last week. He didn't enter Lee Hunter from Auburn is the kid in question. He didn't put in a transfer until this past weekend. How does that work? And yeah, because
like maybe they're going to have to come on after spring.
That's what I mean. I'm not sure how that's going to roll, and that's unfortunate. But I don't make that decision. No. So for people that wonder about it, it is difficult. I mean, Lee Hunter's he's due.
Can you talk about him a little bit?
Yeah. His background is pretty unique. He was a top 5 kid in the state of Alabama. Okay. Played at Blunt High School in Mobile, which is a tradition-rich program. And it's one of those schools that's always got guys. But when you walk in the door at 6'4", 320,
big boy.
Yeah, and you can actually move, then it's different. So I'm not sure if he's a kid that UCF has a chance to really get. This isn't going to come up on my screen, but they can really get. But they do have one big advantage. I mean, they just know the kid. Yeah. And if it is a situation where, hey, you've got to wait till summer or whatever, it is what it is.
Yeah.
But for most schools, that's where he would be anyway, because state schools predominantly have already started. Yeah. Maybe he still announces, maybe they can get him in, but he'd be a week late on class. That's not good. So I have no idea what his circumstance is. Don't know the kid, but when he walks off the bus, he will catch your attention.
I'm looking at it says 6'5", 300.
He's bigger than that. He's bigger. At least he was at high school. But he can play that interior D-line spot and demand a double team.
Perfect.
If you can't,
Trayvon.
Yeah, if you can't get guys to be double team worthy at the interior, that's okay, but they better be pure pass rushers. This kid is just the opposite. He is not a pass rusher. He is straight up a kid that is a run stuffer, power player. Yeah. Now, he's got a one-arm stab move. He's got a bull rush. Those are the kinds of things he does. But in college, and it's probably why he redshirted at Auburn this last year, you have to have counter moves and some form of speed move, especially in the SEC West. I mean, he's at Auburn. Yeah. You know, their crossover game is Georgia every year. Good luck. Yeah. So they redshirted him. He's going to have 4 years of eligibility with whichever institution he goes to. Again, it's rumored it's going to be UCF. Is it going to happen anytime? I have zero idea.
We don't know.
There are other kids that I've been told are going to, and they haven't. Things change.
Right.
You know, a kid didn't get admitted. He changed his mind. UCF changed its mind. Whatever. So for those of you that don't know, just type in Lee Hunter, Auburn into your Google or what, it'll pop up. There's a million things about him out there. He is in the transfer portal. He is that rare gem that flat out UCF just doesn't normally get. He was the number 90 player in the country or whatever coming out of high school.
Yeah, and I think it's 81st.
So yeah, whatever he was. Yeah, that's right. But he had offer from pretty much everybody in the South. Yeah. You know what I mean? Like LSU, Alabama, Georgia. When you can go to those schools as a D lineman, that means you're a potential game changer. UCF does not get those kids. They don't. And that's the difference between why Alabama and Georgia were in the national title game. Nobody wants to hear it. There's about 10 schools that get all the elite D-line and corners. And that's it. For whatever reason, that's the schools they go to. UCF ain't on that list. They're not. And it's hilarious that all of a sudden Gus comes here, has all these connections, and T. Will does, David Gibbs, etc. All of a sudden, they're getting a chance at corner. They're getting a chance to play a few other positions into the situation that UCF's not normally in. Safety's getting deeper. Linebackers getting more athletic. It's not coincidence. Recruiting is about relationships.
And a big key point that we'll talk about in the next show is that the move to the Big 12 is definitely bringing in some recruiting.
It helps.
Move to the Power Five. That turned off a lot of kids. That group of five.
It should. Oh yeah.
You know,
Lee Hunter is going to go from the SEC to UCF for a year. The difference in competition is stark.
Oh, man.
It is. I asked Big Cat one day at the press conference. He was getting ready to walk up there. I said, "What's the difference in offensive tackles? This league compared to SEC?" He just kind of looked at me like I was smoking crack.
Yeah.
Like he's just like there really is. It's just different. And I knew the answer. I was just curious to see how honest he would be, because second string OTs at the SEC level would murder flat out most of the offensive tackles in the AAC. A lot of UCF fans don't want to hear that. It's fact. Until you go to the practices and be around them, stand them, shake an SEC defensive lineman's hand and you don't see your hand, like literally, do not see it. It's different. And it's just size. That's why those teams generally do better. There are exceptions, or teams have turnovers. Like UCF's played well a couple of times against SEC teams. In a one-game scenario, that's one thing. Playing an entire schedule against them is different, because you get the crap beat out of you, even against the lower-level teams.
And you lose guys, so they got to replace guys. So.
There is no Tulane in the SEC.
Nah.
You know what I mean? I hate the SEC, but it's by far the best conference. It's not even close.
That's just beautiful. As anybody who watch college football, you got to be honest with yourself.
The thing fan stands for is short for fanatic, and blinders are on with UCF fans and every other fan base. Right. I have people tell me all the time just ridiculous things. Oh, we would have beat Alabama or this or that, like some school that went 7-5. I'm like, bro, you didn't win your conference. You barely made a bowl game. Bama would beat you by 30. Shut up and sit down. It's just the way it is,
like you said, it's a difference. It's a difference of talent. But with that move, I feel like they'll be able to get some of those guys, like a Lee Hunter and a Kobe Perry.
Here's an interesting thing. If they get Hunter, he would be the first, and this is so ironic, player from Alabama that Coach Malzahn has signed since he's been. That is shocking. They are 0 for 21 with the high school kids that they offered from this past year.
0 for 21?
Yeah, from the state of Alabama. They didn't get any of them. They swung big. They just didn't get any of them. State of Alabama is hard to recruit, but not to get any was shocking.
I'm just hoping that the transfer portal stuff is not like smoking guns with Gus with recruiting.
Well, they did well with the high school kids, though.
They did well in Orlando. Yeah, that they did awesome. Locally.
That's what they got. The thing of it is, if you can get 6 out of the top 12 kids from the greater Orlando area every year,
you have, and being in UCF, you have to, man. Like you said, it shouldn't be that hard to recruit in the state where we're at, right? You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, like Goldie Lawrence, the kid that's from Seminole High School. It's rumored he's going to commit. I know him well. I was messaging with him right before we came on the show, talking about some other kids that plays with him on Certified Dogs 7-on-7. He's going to that hometown hero thing on the 29th. For people out there, I could care less if Goldie commits to UCF anytime soon. He is a true Florida kid. He's going to take visits. Yeah. It ain't going to mean anything. Yeah. But maybe he will. I have no idea, but I would be shocked if he did.
Are any of the Lake Wells kids or Polk County kids thinking about going to that? Because I think they should recruit the Lake Gibsons and the Barton.
Oh, they'll recruit all the Polk County's on their radar. There's Jeremiah England, a few other kids from Lake Wales, the Williams kid from Lakeland, who's a big receiver. Yeah. UCF's recruiting the perimeter counties.
They got
Cocoa, Seminole High School, Osceola, that area. They're recruiting all those. And they're recruiting Tampa too. But generally speaking, it starts with Orange County.
Yes, sir.
And then it kind of moves. If they get 6 out of the 12, they should be 4. Because 5 years ago, they'd have been lucky to get 1. Yeah. And that's just true.
And the Henderson twins and Nikai is a great start.
Nikai Martinez. Those are guys that can come in and play.
Those guys are ready, and they're dogs too, even.
That's absolutely true. The only thing that they really need now is to do it a second year in a row to build depth so they can just rotate guys. The elite team, especially on defense, it's hot down here, man. You can't just play You got to be able to rotate guys. They just need another group. I mean, it's just time. It's a lot harder to build a football roster than a basketball roster. So, with that, like Andrew said, we're going to do a show coming up tomorrow, day after. Need to do a little research, but going to talk a little bit about UCF's move from where they are now to the Big 12. And I'm kind of interested. I want to look at some recruiting stuff. I'm a big Dave Aranda fan, the Baylor head coach. I think they're going to be the standard in the conference. I'm not high on Cincinnati moving forward, although some other people are.
Oklahoma State, how do you like Oklahoma State?
They're not going to be the same. Two reasons. Number one, had a bunch of seniors. Number two, their defensive coordinator just flipped him the bird and went to Ohio State. So he's a great coach. But yeah, all the boxes checked in 1 year, and they still didn't even win the Big 12. You know what I mean? It's like, that's a hard school to get kids to go to. It is a straight up cow town. It's about as exciting as watching a mosquito buzz around your ear. It's hard to recruit there. It just is. So yeah, they'll be good, and he can coach. Yeah. But you got to get players, man, to make that next step. It's just recruiting. I think Gundy could coach at Alabama, but it's just recruiting. He's, for people who don't know, he was a quarterback at Oklahoma State when Barry Sanders was there. Yeah, he was good. He was a hell of a player. Yeah. But
those teams, Baylor, the Oklahoma States, we still got to look out for Cincinnati. We'll get more into that. But like we said, UCF is gonna need depth, like in the defense secondary, like we talked about today, to compete with those Power 5 schools, because they got guys even in the second level that's likely a 3 or 4 star.
That's been great to see the transformation just in 6 months, where UCF was the beginning of like fall camp to now at corner, and it's night and day. So, and you're right, if you don't have depth there, schools like TCU, Texas Tech,
those guys,
once you get into that, if you don't have depth at corner, that's not going to end well. If you think about it, in 23, all these kids that were sophomores this last year will be seniors. And you'll have those Nakai and the Henderson twins they'll have a year older, but they'll be good to go. That'll be as deep a year for UCF secondary as they could ever possibly have. So hopefully they can get that going again this year and progress, and then one more step in 23. Maybe they could even contend for that'd be cool if you won it in the first year. That'd be hilarious, actually.
Man.
Especially with the Florida team.
I feel like that's an exciting, because like you said, Baylor, I want to get down to the nitty-gritty. So we'll do that. Yep.
All right, for Andrew Johnson, I'm Brian Smith. Please like and subscribe. We will be back soon. Everybody have a great day.